Well, good morning, almost good afternoon. Welcome. It's exciting to be here today. This event is always a highlight for me, and we're going to take an opportunity today to reflect on the prior year and kind of position ourselves for the year ahead. No doubt 2020 challenged us as we've never imagined. Nevertheless, we're all standing strong today, ready to forge ahead and allowing the lessons that we've learned to propel us forward. I know many of our community members have lost loved ones to this horrible disease, and to you I do extend my deepest condolences, and our prayers continue to go out for those that are suffering from this horrible disease. We could not have made it through the past year without teamwork, and I'd like to begin by saying thank you to some very important members in our City Council. They've already been introduced, and I'm really grateful to work with you gentlemen. Our Council President, John Lydon, thank you for your leadership. Of course, you're the veteran. We actually have a couple of veterans now, don't we? But certainly you've been there now for this is your third term, and I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed working with you over the past few months and your leadership. And then to the nearly 800 city employees, I really don't have enough words to adequately express how I feel about them, the countless hours, the willingness that you served at every turn, and did things. You never looked for any a handshake or a pat on the back. You continue to do your job with professionalism and dedication, and to serve our residents, our visitors, and our community with such excellence. And I thank you for being a reflection of really what makes Hoover the great city that it is. I'd love for some of our city employees that are here, if they would stand up, because I think they deserve a round of applause. And to the leaders of the Hoover Area Chamber of Commerce, thank you for your commitment to our business community and the economic health of the city. I'd like to give a special welcome to Tony Herrera Bass, who was recently selected as the new president and CEO of the Chamber. Tony, where are you, Tony? I look forward to working with you and Paul and the entire Chamber. And Christopher, thank you for AmFirst sponsoring us today. Where did you get off to, Chris? Thank you very much. We're grateful that you would bring us all back together for the first time. Thank you so much. So I've lived in the city and served in the city for over 45 years of my life, and I've experienced the strength of the community, its character, and its kindness of our citizens. So with COVID-19 struck, I saw your responses reaching out to neighbors, helping one another. And I really wasn't surprised, but really comforted by the signs that confirmed who we really are. There were so many acts of kindness, large and small, that went unnoticed. So many heroes that stepped up to the plate and went beyond serving others. And I'd like to recognize several of them today if I could. You know, when COVID first hit, understandably, there was a lot of unknown fear and concerns over this disease. Our first responders, like our firefighters and our police officers in public works, they continue to do their duties in spite of those unknowns. We already recognize them, but I just want to continue to say how much I appreciate everything that they did and continue to do in our city. But like our first responders, doctors and nurses, they rolled up their sleeves and did the difficult work day in and day out, working closely right there with the COVID patients, putting their own lives at risk. Wren Manners. Wren, where is Wren? Wren, stand up for a second. Hoover resident Wren Manners, she saw this firsthand. There's a family in her neighborhood where both spouses are doctors and they have a 2-year-old child. Wren, who does small catering jobs, took note of this family and began making meals for them. She then asked if they knew of any other doctors that could benefit from the meals, and 5 more were added to the list. Eventually, Wren shared the request to her neighborhood Facebook page, and the response was overwhelming. Neighbors began dropping off cakes and casseroles and various dishes for those doctors' families, and Wren organized it all to make sure they got where they needed. Overall, the neighborhood contributed about 100 meals. Wren prepared 50 of them on her own. All of this happened during a time when she was dealing with the recent loss of 5 of her own family members and friends. She says preparing and organizing the meals gave her a way to keep her mind occupied, so the work was as much for her as it was for the recipients. Wren, today we thank you for your selfless act of kindness, knowing it made a difference in the lives of so many. Thank you so much. And it was not long after COVID began that experts strongly suggested that we wear masks, a way to protect us and prevent us from spreading the virus. However, they were quickly flying off the store shelves and really difficult to find. This is when Rebecca Crossman, Rebecca, where are you? Rebecca, stand up, thank you. Rebecca realized that she could help. Because of the pandemic, she was stuck at home, but she had friends who were frontline workers, and so she pulled out her sewing machine and she began making masks. At first, she made them for friends. Then other people started to ask her to make masks for them. At one point, she could not make them fast enough. The requests were coming in from everywhere. By the time October rolled around, Rebecca had sewn over 2,000 masks, all by herself, all to help others. When asked about her efforts, Rebecca simply said, "I'm always up for a challenge of learning new ways to sew things, and I thought, I can do that." Rebecca, thank you for using your gift of sewing to serve others in a time of need. You know, our libraries, they're known for being beacons of help in our community, and that was certainly the case during pandemic. When the library closed its doors, its services did not end. Not only did they find ways to serve the public through electronic means, but also the staff members quickly turned their skills in a new direction. We knew the community would have many questions and needs, and we worked to establish a city resource that they could call to get help. We set up a community helpline, and our librarians staffed those phone lines, taking their reference skills and using them to help others. Under the leadership of Library Director Amanda Borden and her assistant Carrie Steinmelt and their colleagues at the Hoover Library, they worked tirelessly to man these phone lines and respond to very difficult and heart-wrenching questions to get answers in many ways. They provided so much hope for those in need. That helpline is still in effect. Please, would y'all stand up? Thank you so much, Carrie. We appreciate it. As I look back on how quickly we responded to the COVID crisis, I'm proud of our team. I clearly remember that day, March the 13th, Friday the 13th. Both the President and the Governor issued various emergency orders affecting all of us, and they began to talk about social distancing. That weekend and the following months here in Hoover, we saw major tournaments and events begin to cancel at the Hoover Met and the Finley Center. Our municipal courts also shut down, along with the senior center, the library, and our ballparks. On Monday, March the 16th, and the days to follow, we established the Hoover Emergency Operations Center and activated our incident management team. They quickly implemented our incident management plan, which was vitally important because of the things that were happening at a rapid pace. From closing schools to closing businesses, arranging workplaces at employees' homes. There's so many things that had to be incorporated and implemented. And looking back now, I realize that had we not done that so early on, we would have had chaos instead of organized, synchronized operations. We began sanitizing our fire stations and their apparatus and city facilities. Our department heads developed alternate work schedules for employees. Our IT department began working on setting up remote access capabilities as well so that business of the city could continue uninterrupted. Constant communication was imperative during this time, and we used several mechanisms to make sure we were doing that effectively. We held weekly and at times bi-weekly conference calls that included our city department heads, city council members, our school superintendent, in which we shared updates about operations each entity was conducting. We instituted a program called Everbridge, a community notification system that allowed us to share pertinent information like the phone numbers to access our helplines with the community. They could get the information through a text message or an email. This gave us another avenue through which we could communicate vital information to our citizens. We created a web page on the city's website that was dedicated solely to COVID-related information, everything from health orders to news releases. We sent those out. During this time, I shot a weekly video message that informed our citizens of the issues we were facing, and we shared those through our various social media platforms. We participated in a number of media interviews covering the steps we were taking at the city level to address this virus. Several of our employees participated and are still participating in weekly calls with different local, county, and state groups in their areas of expertise, sharing information amongst themselves that is then shared with the public at large. I think one of the most helpful modes we used was teaming up with our Hoover Chamber to conduct 6 virtual town hall meetings hosting business and professional experts that sought to educate the community on a number of COVID-related topics and the impact of COVID on retail, hospitality, education, and health care. There would never have been a good time for COVID to hit. Nevertheless, when it came mid-March, it hit just as our schools were heading into spring break. That presented a unique challenge because even though schools had to close, many school children still needed to be fed. Dr. Kathy Murphy reached out to the city and she asked if we could help with this effort. I immediately appointed our Chief of Operations, Jim Wyatt, to oversee this task, and he hopped into action. Since our recreation center was closed, Jim rallied that staff, and those folks took the energy normally reserved for fitness and training and turned it instead towards delivering meals for school children. Jim assigned members of our Park and Recreation Department, and they teamed up with school employees to deliver meals. This did not happen just for 1 week of the spring break, for a total of 10 weeks. This was a mammoth task, but here in Hoover we're blessed with incredible resources in many organizations like Hoover Helps and Neighborhood Bridges, and with their help, our employees were able to do some wonderful work. So listen to these numbers. In 10 weeks, Hoover Helps prepared approximately 6,000 bags of food that helped approximately 12,000 school children. Then there's Neighborhood Bridges, which takes information generated by school counselors about kids in the school system in need, and it turns around and puts those requests before the public so that the needs can be met. Through Neighborhood Bridges, nearly 2,000 families received benefits, and over $20,000 was given in direct monetary contributions to help those families in need. The bishops are here, and they run that organization. I'd love for them to stand up, and Jim White as well. They deserve a round of applause. We set up the Hoover Helpline, and the following week the Business Helpline became operational, and the Eat, Shop, Play Hoover website, created by the Chamber, went into effect. We began working to establish the Hoover Cares Volunteer Business Advisors Coalition, which provided a channel and mentors for small businesses to get their questions answered about the various financial opportunities that would help them stay afloat. As the months went on, the city purchased nearly 18,000 pieces of PPE, masks, gloves, gowns, and other personal protective equipment to make sure our first responders were kept safe. Fortunately, we were blessed. We only had 65 known positive cases amongst our 800 staffs in the city of Hoover. One of the most difficult yet most rewarding moments during the pandemic came in May as our high school seniors approached graduation. At that time, Dr. Murphy and her staff made the decision to hold a formal graduation ceremony for our seniors. Dr. Murphy said it was the most difficult decision she had made in her career in deciding to move forward with that plan. I also felt that our students had already lost so much due to the pandemic and worked too hard to get to that point to forego celebrating that moment. I wanted them to enjoy a real graduation, and working hand in hand with Dr. Murphy and the school system, we were able to make that happen. It was not without controversy. In fact, the story made national headlines as an example of how to conduct a safe ceremony. But some not only questioned, but also denounced the decision. Still, we moved forward in faith, finding ways to make sure that the ceremonies were held in a safe manner while still honoring the outstanding accomplishments of our young students. From a financial perspective, I'm proud to say that our staff and our city council were ahead of the curve in doing all we could to protect the city financially during the COVID crisis. We started responding to COVID in early March as we watched how the virus was affecting countries overseas. We wanted to be prepared in case it hit us in a similar fashion here in the United States. So we called on our department heads and asked them to look at ways to reduce spending and to cut costs several days before the President announced a national emergency declaration. Everything was on the table. We implemented a strict energy savings plan in all city buildings and filled only crucial positions, just to name a few. We worked closely with our city council, who implemented safeguards to prevent damage to the city's finances. They put practical measures in place that helped us stay within our budget constraints. During this time, our chief financial officer retired, and we appointed Tina Bolt as our interim CFO, and we never missed a beat. She came in and immediately got us in even better shape than we were before. Tina has since been named our permanent CFO and treasurer, and we are fortunate to have her in leadership in this key position. Tina, please stand so everyone can see you. She helped us reorganize and combine several city departments. Through attrition, we were able to eliminate some of our department head positions and salaries, and that move alone saved us $750,000 per year. We had originally predicted that we could possibly lose between $8 and $15 million in revenue. However, aggressively cutting operational expenses and receiving better than projected revenue, we ended 2020 in the black and financially sound. As we were dealing with the ongoing COVID crisis and the financial challenges surrounding that, we were shocked to hear about the death of George Floyd, a situation that turned our country upside down. And while that tragedy took place thousands of miles from Hoover, Alabama, and Minnesota, it sparked an emotional outcry across the U.S., including right here in Hoover. Protesters began holding nightly and then weekly protests on city property that required us to add another layer to our incident management plan. I believe our police officers performed splendidly during this time, working long hours to make sure our city was safe and under control, while at the same time making sure those citizens had an opportunity to express their First Amendment rights. I'm proud to report our police department and our fire department are both going through an intense national accreditation process that will validate the things that they do well and identify areas of improvement. Very few departments across the United States have even attempted to become fully accredited. And we're proud of the Hoover Police Department and the Hoover Fire Department for taking this on and showing tremendous dedication to the process. Thank you to both of our chiefs. Please stand if you would. As issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion move to the front of our public conversation, the City of Hoover continued along a path that we had set in 2016. At the start of my first term, we identified areas of improvement, making sure that our local government reflected the community that we serve. Since that time, we've taken measurable steps to simply do what is right. We've established processes to ensure that jobs within the city of Hoover are advertised to all groups of people, and that we deliberately include women, people of color, veterans, and people living with disabilities. We've begun proactive recruitment efforts to find the best qualified candidates. We've refined our hiring and interview processes to be more welcoming to all applicants. We've designated an administrator within our HR department to serve as our diversity coordinator to help lead our efforts. We've provided appropriate training to our executive staff, our managers, and our supervisors. Moreover, we've removed unintended barriers that might limit the success of underrepresented applicants in finding work with the city. All of these efforts represent permanent, deliberate changes to how we staff our city government. We owe it to our citizens to always find the best people available to serve our city, to train those people to the highest level possible, and to treat them with dignity and respect so that we retain them within our organization. This is a mindset that we adopted from the beginning of this administration, and it's one that we will continuously build upon to make our city strong and an inclusive organization. Even as the COVID crisis continued to loom, our city was hit with another tragedy. On a quiet Friday afternoon, the day before July the 4th, a young boy's life was senselessly taken and several others were seriously injured. That afternoon, Roy Tay Giles Jr. and his family were shopping at the River Chase Galleria, buying outfits for the upcoming holiday. They were standing in line with others. Suddenly, shots rang out, and Roy Tay was fatally struck. This left his family with a cavernous hole in their hearts. 3 other shoppers were also struck, but thankfully they survived. Once again, the Hoover Police Department moved with lightning speed to investigate this terrible crime and arrest those responsible for it. In the following days, that horrible event, you, the citizens of Hoover, embraced the Giles family in many ways. The city helped coordinate a fund for the family to help with expenses, and members of our community generously gave thousands of dollars. Our police officers, many of whom know Roy Tay's grandmother, raised money within their department, showing kindness to a longtime friend. Councilman Derek Murphy organized a community prayer vigil in Roy Tay's memory, and many in the Hoover community turned out as a sign of support for that family. In the weeks and the months following, we worked to increase security measures at the River Chase Galleria in an attempt to make sure events like this never happen again. In partnership with mall owners, we increased the number of officers assigned to routine patrol inside the mall and expanded the hours of those patrols. We reactivated our police substation at the Galleria, and that increased police presence around the entire mall property. Brookfield Properties, which owns the Galleria, added specially trained gun detection canines that, while non-intrusive to shoppers, are able to sniff out anyone carrying a weapon. They also invested in new equipment to improve instant communication between their security staff and the Hoover Police Department. We know those measures cannot bring Roy Tay back nor erase those scars. Nevertheless, we are committed to making our city as safe as possible and letting criminals know your brazen acts of lawlessness and evil will not be tolerated here or ever. In spite of COVID-19, the businesses of the city continued, and that was during some extremely challenging times. We've made it through it, and in spite of all of these challenges, we saw so many things, so many positive things happen. For example, we had 1,123 new business licenses issued in our city. 23 new commercial buildings were built, 399 new single-family homes constructed. In terms of crime statistics, we finished 2020 with a nearly 16% reduction in total offenses compared to 2019. That included a 30% drop in burglaries. We opened our new $4 million police training center, and we're excited about the opportunity to provide first-class, cutting-edge training for our officers and also for other officers throughout the state. We continued to build our new fire station number 11, which sits near the Hoover Met, and it'll be a huge asset in serving not only the facility, not only the city of Hoover, but that area that we're building out towards the Met around the Finley Center. We made the decision to keep Aldridge Gardens open as a way to give folks a safe outdoor venue that they could exercise, have a picnic, or just take a walk around the beautiful grounds and escape into nature. A record number of nearly 115,000 residents took advantage of the gardens last year. That's a 40% increase over last year's attendance. I must admit I was very grateful to see the arrival of 2021. Moreover, I truly believe this year will be much better than last. I remain hopeful that we can make a serious pushback in the coronavirus and make as more of us receive the vaccine. I want to switch the focus now and just look to the future a bit. And in spite of all the challenges during 2020, I am very, very honored and privileged to hold the position and to serve as the mayor of Hoover. As I look to the next 4 years, I do so with a clear and concise vision aimed at moving our city forward. We've developed strategic priorities that I believe will guide us to an even higher quality of life in Hoover. We'll continue to work on several major initiatives. Our major initiatives include continue to work with the private sector partners to redevelop the River Chase Galleria campus. Development of the new interstate, a new interchange exit along I-459 and other associated roadway improvements in western Hoover to decrease traffic issues, improve public safety, and minimize pollution. We're collaborating with our congressional delegation, the governor's office, and other agencies to expand the United States Secret Service National Computer Forensic Institute, better known as the NCFI. This federal law enforcement facility housed right here in Hoover trains police officers, prosecutors, and judges from around the nation in how to detect, investigate, and prosecute cybercrime and other criminal acts that involve the use of technology. NCFI is a crown jewel in our nation's law enforcement arsenal, and we are working hard to help it grow so it can so even more communities in America can be protected from these types of threats. Some of our continuing priorities involve a list of efforts already underway, which include continuing to upgrade our technology network and implement a new citywide management software, expanding the automation of traffic engineering solutions, developing a continuity of operations plan to make sure that city government will function in the face of any type of disaster, serving as a leader in efforts to expand regional cooperation, and implementing a supplier diversity program for city purchased goods and services, and focus on our human resource processes so that we attract, retain, and develop the best employees available to work in city government. Lastly, we have department goals, where each department in office has been charged with developing service-oriented goals for performance. Our leadership team will track those efforts year to year to hold ourselves accountable for the way that public dollars are used. In fact, we've recently started displaying on the city website a set of information dashboards that show the key activities within each department. Our elected officials, our citizens, our businesses can visit this page, and under the Open Government section of our website, they can see the key performance indicators that we are tracking. As the months go by, we will be able to do a comparative analysis of trends and make smart decisions about budgets and resource allocations according to this data. Many businesses in our community use this type of management method, and we're committed to taking the same approach to managing our city. So as I close, I've said it once and I'll say it again. I'm so grateful to lead this wonderful city, and it's a privilege to work with the city employees, our businesses, our schools, our wonderful city. I'm so encouraged about the future of our city. In fact, it's very bright. Thank you.